Welcome to The Explainer. What if I told you the clearest path to $1 million fortune isn't sexy or complicated? In fact, what if I told you it's kind of boring? Today, we're diving into the businesses we see every single day, but almost always overlook.
So let's start with this pretty bold claim from an entrepreneur named David Heacock. He says making a massive fortune isn't about some stroke of genius. Nope, it's about finding a simple, boring business and just committing to it.
And why should we even listen to this guy? Well, how about this number for a reason? $22 million per month. That's the revenue his company, FilterBuy, pulls in. And what do they sell? Air filters. It really doesn't get much more boring or profitable than that.
Okay, so what's the secret sauce here? How do these seemingly ordinary businesses turn into absolute cash flow empires? Well, it all starts with understanding that there are really two fundamental roads you can take to get there. Heacock breaks it all down into two main categories. First, you've got your property businesses. This is where you own physical stuff that makes you money. Think rental equipment or even ATMs. Then, on the other side, you've got service businesses. This is where you use your skills and systems to do something for people, like fixing their AC or towing their truck. They're very different for sure, but both paths can be incredibly lucrative. Let's dig into that first path, property. This is the one that gets a lot of people excited, and for good reason. It comes with the dream of passive income. The idea of making money in your sleep. Just take a look at the story of Paul Alex. He's a retired police officer. He started out by buying a single ATM for about $2,000 and stuck it in a local nail salon. That one machine, it started spitting out $500 a month in pure profit. He kept his day job, and just slowly, one machine at a time, he built his empire. Today, his company brings in over $8 million a year. It's a perfect example of how this works.
And here's another classic example, the humble laundromat. Now, what's crazy about this is the success rate. According to the data, laundromats have a mind-blowing 95% success rate. That's nearly double the odds of your average small business, which is basically a coin flip. The numbers here really speak for themselves.
But, and this is a big but, the dream of just setting it up and watching the cash roll in isn't quite the whole story. The reality is, these things need constant upkeep. They cost a ton of money to start, and if you pick the wrong location, you're toast. It can be super profitable, yeah, but it is definitely not effortless. Sometimes the best business ideas come from your own problems. Heacock had this exact experience when the air compressor at his factory died. He was in a panic. So he found a local place and paid them $500 a day to rent one, and he said it was totally worth it to keep his business from shutting down. For him, that was a huge light bulb moment. See, the equipment rental business has these awesome hidden perks. First off, it's super tax efficient. You can write off the entire cost of the equipment against the money it makes you. Plus, with more and more manufacturing coming back to the US, the demand for this kind of gear is just going to keep climbing. It's a really smart place to be. So, those property businesses are fantastic for building a solid income. But if you're aiming for the big leagues, millions or maybe even billions, Heacock says service businesses are where the real magic happens. Let's get into why. Service businesses totally flip the script. They don't require a mountain of cash to get going. They're what we call capital light. Your main investment isn't money, it's your brain. It's about getting really good at something and then building smart, efficient systems around it. A perfect case study is an HVAC business, heating and air conditioning. The playbook is just so clear. First, learn the trade. You could even go work for a competitor for a while. Then you pick one local area and just focus on being the absolute best there. You can completely crush the competition by using modern marketing on social media while they're all still wasting money on old-school radio ads and billboards. Or take emergency towing. Heacock tells this story about a guy in his hometown in Alabama who became one of the richest people around. And how'd he do it? He figured out that towing regular cars wasn't where the big money was. The real profit, the high-margin stuff, was in having the special equipment to tow broken-down 18-wheelers. Truckers would pay almost anything to get back on the road. And if you want to see just how big a boring service business can get, look at this. GFL Waste Management was started by a former hockey player, Patrick DeVigi. He just saw a gap in the local trash business, won a big city contract, and then started buying up all the smaller players, over 100 of them. Today, GFL is a massive publicly traded company. It's incredible. Okay, so we've looked at the two paths, but how do you actually start walking down one of them? What are the first steps? Well, Heacock lays out a super simple 3-step playbook that you can apply to pretty much any boring business you can think of. This whole playbook is designed to build a rock-solid foundation. It really comes down to these three things: start lean, validate your idea, and then win in your local market. Step 1 is all about starting with as little cash as possible. This story about John the window cleaner is just perfect. The guy literally started with a squeegee, a bucket, and some soap. He did all the work himself, figured out what customers needed, and built a system. And today, that super simple business clears $4 million a year in profit. It all started from nothing.
Now, step 2 is non-negotiable. You have to validate your idea before you go all in. Before Heacock built a huge factory, you know what he did? He just drop-shipped filters from someone else. He didn't make much money, but he proved people would buy from him. You can do the same thing. Just build a simple website, run a few cheap ads, and see if anyone actually clicks the buy button. It's a way to test your idea with basically zero risk.
And finally, we've got step 3, win locally. Don't try to conquer the world on day one. Just look at Domino's Pizza. They didn't launch with a plan for global domination. They started by obsessing over one single college town. They perfected everything about delivering pizza to students, and that intense local focus became the foundation for the global giant they are today. So all of this really leads to a final question, one for you to think about. Forget about trying to invent the next big thing. Instead, just look around your own neighborhood. What is an annoying, unglamorous, totally boring problem that is just sitting there, waiting for someone like you to solve it?
Because that's really the big takeaway here. The most exciting, life-changing fortunes are almost always built on the simplest, most boring ideas you can imagine. The real opportunity isn't some far-off dream. It's hiding in plain sight, in the everyday problems that we all just walk right past. You just have to be willing to see it.